If you ever find an old cassette tape in a dead person's house, do not press play. Not even once. Because some voices don't stay in the past. Some voices wait for you to listen, and then they learn your name. My name is Sarah. I am 26 years old. And 3 months ago, I found my mother's voice trapped inside a plastic box the size of my palm. I think saying it keeps me safe. For now, please, just listen to the whole thing before you decide I'm crazy. By the end, I think you'll under. Part 1. The empty house my mother died in March. Cancer. Slow, then fast, the way the doctors always warn you it will be. I was with her at the end, holding her last words to me were soft, almost a whisper. She said, "Sarah, don't listen to anything that sounds like me if I'm not really there." I thought it was the medicine talking. She was on so much morphine by then. Her mind wandered. She said strange things all week, about shadows in the corner, about a man standing by the window W. I held my mother's hand and told her she was safe, that I was there, that nothing could hurt her. I still don't, not fully. But I understand enough now to be afraid. After the funeral, it fell on me to clean out her house. I'm an only child. My father left when I was young, and it was always just me and Mom. In that small house on Maple Row, I hadn't lived there in years, but walking through the front door again felt like stepping into a moo. Everything smelled like her perfume, like old paper, like dust settling on furniture that hadn't be. Her reading glasses were still sitting on the arm of the couch, folded neatly, waiting for a woman W clothes to donate, furniture to sell, photographs to keep. It was slow, heavy work, the kind that makes your chest hurt, even when you're Han. Some days I got through 3 boxes. Some days I sat on the floor of her bedroom and cried for an hoe. On the 5th day, I went up into the attic. I hadn't been up there since I was a kid. Maybe tenure the attic was smaller than I remembered, low-ceilinged, thick with dust that floated in the 1-beam boxes were stacked everywhere. Some so old the cardboard had gone soft and brown at the corners. There was a smell up there too, something under the dust, something faintly sweet and a little bitter. I started opening the boxes one by one. Old baby clothes, folded so small they looked like they bellow photo albums with plastic pages gone yellow and cracked. A box of my father's old vinyl records, which surprised me. I thought she'd thrown out everything. Oh, and then, near the back wall, tucked behind a rolled-up rug that smelled like mothballs, I found AS. It was old, dark wood, with a little brass clasp gone green with age. It wasn't locked. Inside, sit no label. No writing anywhere on it. Just a plain black cassette, the kind you'd find in a bargain bin, but it wasn't dusty like everything else in that attic. It looked clean, almost new, like someone had placed it there recently, even though the box around it looked like it had been sea. I don't know why, but I picked it up and held it to my chest for a moment. The way you'd hold something told me my mother had touched this last, that her fingers had been the last fingers on it. I know that now. I think somewhere underneath all my grief, some small animal part of me already knew that too. And part 2. The first time I pressed play, I didn't have a cassette player. Nobody does anymore. So I drove to 3 different thrift stores before I found an old boombox, dusty and covered, and Stick the man at the counter tested it for me. And it worked, the wheels turning with a soft mechanical whoo. That night, I sat on the floor of my apartment with the boombox in front of me. The tape already lower, I pressed play. At first, there was only static, the hiss of old tape running through old machinery, warm. Exactly as I remembered it, down to the small catch she always had in her throat when she was, if you're listening to this, Then I'm already gone, aren't I? I'm sorry. I want more time. I started crying immediately. It felt like a gift. Like she had left me one more conversation. Hitta the voice continued, talking about small things, how proud she was of me, how she remembered the day. It felt like being wrapped in a blanket that had just come out of the dryer, warm all the way through. I listened to it 3 more times that night. Each time, it felt like a hug from beyond the grave. Part 3. Something is different the next evening. I wanted to hear her voice again. I made tea, then her voice. But something was wrong. "Sarah," the voice said. "My sweet girl, did you sleep well last night? You always used to toss and turn when you were anxious about something. I could always tell, even WH. I froze, my tea cooling in my hands. I had tossed and turned the night before. Actually, no, wait. It had talked about my birth, about my father, about hoping I found someone to love me. This was a D. Maybe I had just forgotten a section. Maybe the tape was longer than I thought, and I hadn't listened. I know you drove to 3 stores looking for something to play me on. You always were stubborn-like. I did remember that dress. I hadn't thought about it in 20 years, hadn't thought about it since I hadn't even told my best friend that specific detail. I'd only said I'd found an old player, so my hands went cold. The tape clicked off again, exactly 10 minutes in, same as before the click, so I didn't sleep that night. I sat awake in bed with all the lights on, staring at the boombox sitting. Part 4. I try to explain it away in the morning. Sunlight helps. It always does. Fear that feels I told myself there had to be a logical explanation. Maybe the tape had multiple tracks and the PLA nobody could record onto an old cassette tape and place it inside a sealed box in an attic that had Denise sounded confused. She said my mother hadn't mentioned anything like that. Not once in Basid. That should have scared me more than it did. Instead, some strange, hopeful part of me wanted a bell. It makes the impossible feel like comfort instead of danger. Like a door left open instead of a trap. Most of what came up was nothing. Obituaries, church bake sale announcements, a decades-old article the headline read. Local woman's death ruled accidental after months of strange behavior. Diaries. I stared at that clipping for a long time. I told myself it meant nothing. Coincidences happen. Old towns have old tragedies, dozens of them, buried in every issue of every day, but I wrote down the name anyway, Eleanor Voss, on a scrap of paper I folded into my pocket. And I told myself I needed to understand it, to know what it was before I could decide whether to be AF. Part 4.5. The house on Larkspur Street before that, though curiosity got the better of it, looked ordinary. Sad, maybe the way old houses look when nobody has loved them in a long time. An old man was raking leaves next door, moving slowly, the way people move when their bodies have SD. He stopped raking. He looked at me for a long moment, the way you look at someone when you're Dakiti. His name was Walter, and he told me he'd lived on that street his whole life, 71 years, and back and forth. Except there wasn't ever anybody else in that house with her. Not after her husband. She stopped going to school, he said. Then Eleanor was gone. Found her in the kitchen one morning, relatives from out of state. I never saw her again after that, and neither did anybody else on this. Part 5. The voice learns my name. That night's recording started the same way. Static, then her V. You called Denise today. She doesn't remember me telling her anything, does she? That's all right. I never told anyone about you and me. Not really. Some things are just between a mother and her daughter. My whole body went rigid. There was no way I could know about the phone call. No possible way. Unlee, didn't you want one more conversation with your mother? Didn't you pray for it some nights? After I know you cried more about missing work than about missing me. Some days, and then you hated yours that sounded almost like a scream cut short. I sat there panting in the dark, my heart slamming again. 3 days later, I opened my apartment door to leave for work, and the garbage bag was sitting on him. Talking back was worse. I hadn't talked back yet. Not once. Small comfort, but I held on to it anyway. And Sarah, I don't need the tape anymore. I never really needed it. It was just a door. Now that, I found no further mention of Margaret anywhere in the archive after that single photograph. No SCO.